June 8, 1962, Fox Studios, Los Angeles. Marilyn Monroe walks off the set of Something's Got to Give for the last time. Studio executives have already drafted her termination letter. She's being replaced, erased. $20 million in box office receipts hangs in the balance. Her career, her reputation, her sanity, all on the line. But this isn't the first time Fox tried to destroy her. And it won't be the last time she proves them wrong. 3 times they fired her. 3 times she came back stronger, richer, more untouchable than before. What they didn't know was simple. You can't kill a legend. You can only make her angrier. Here is the story. Hollywood, 1946. The smell of cheap perfume and cheaper dreams hung thick in the waiting rooms of 20th Century Fox. Young girls lined the benches, hopefuls, nobodies. Every single one of them believed they'd be the next big thing. Most would be gone within a year, married to some insurance salesman in Burbank, telling their kids about the time they almost made it. Norma Jean Dougherty was one of those girls. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, wearing a borrowed dress that didn't quite fit. Her hair wasn't the platinum blonde yet. It was mousy brown, curled at the ends the way girls did back then. She'd been modeling for a few months, nothing special, just catalog work and magazine covers that paid enough to keep the lights on. But she wanted more. She needed more. Fox offered her $75 a week, a standard starlet contract, 6 months to prove herself or get cut loose. She signed without reading the fine print. She didn't care what it said. This was her shot. They changed her name to Marilyn Monroe. They bleached her hair until it glowed under studio lights. They taught her how to walk, how to talk, how to smile, like she meant it even when her feet were bleeding in those damned heels. And for 6 months, she did everything they asked. Then they dropped her. No explanation, no second chance. Just a letter in the mail. Your services are no longer required. She was 20 years old, broke, alone, and Hollywood had chewed her up and spit her out before she even got started. But Marilyn Monroe didn't cry. She got angry. She went to Columbia Pictures, did a bit part in a forgettable film, went back to modeling, took acting classes with every dollar she could scrape together. She studied under Natasha Lightis, a Russian drama coach who saw something in her that the studio executives missed. Hunger. Not the kind of hunger that makes you desperate, the kind that makes you dangerous. 2 years later, Fox came crawling back. They'd seen her in a small role, noticed the way audiences reacted when she was on screen. That indefinable thing, star quality, was starting to show. So they offered her another contract. A little more money this time, a little more respect. And Marilyn, smart enough to know when to play the game, signed again. This time she wasn't going to let them forget her name. By 1950, she was landing bigger roles. The Asphalt Jungle, All About Eve. Critics started noticing her. Audiences started asking for her. And Fox, smelling money, started pushing her harder. More movies, more publicity, more of everything except the one thing she actually wanted, to be taken seriously. They saw her as a body, a blonde bombshell, a commodity. She saw herself as an actress, an artist, a human being. That gap between what they saw and what she was would define her entire career, and it would lead to the most brutal power struggle in Hollywood history. Marilyn was everywhere. Magazine covers, billboards, movie posters. She was the most photographed woman in America, and Fox was making a fortune off her image. But her paycheck? Still scraps. $700 a week while the studio was pulling in millions from her films. She asked for a raise. They laughed in her face, so she did something unthinkable. She walked away. Again. But this time, it wasn't Fox firing her. This time, she fired them. The executives panicked. They had 3 films scheduled with her name attached. Pre-production was already underway. Millions of dollars committed. and their biggest star had just walked off the lot. They threatened her, told her she'd never work in Hollywood again, reminded her that she was under contract, and contracts meant something in this town. Marilyn didn't blink. She hired lawyers, good ones, the kind that didn't care about studio power because they had power of their own. And while Fox scrambled to figure out what to do, Marilyn went to New York. She disappeared for months. No interviews. No public appearances. The press speculated she'd had a breakdown, that she was finished, that Hollywood had finally broken the poor, fragile blonde. They had no idea what she was actually doing. She was studying at the Actors Studio with Lee Strasberg, learning method acting, dissecting characters, working on her craft with the same intensity that studio executives worked on profit margins. She was building herself into something Fox couldn't ignore, something they couldn't replace. When she came back with terms, a new contract, more money, script approval, the right to work with other studios, and Fox, desperate to get their golden goose back on screen, agreed to all of it, every single demand. She walked back onto the lot in 1955 not as a starlet, not as a commodity, but as a power player. She was 29 years old, and she just taught 20th Century Fox a lesson they'd never forget. You don't own Marilyn Monroe. You rent her. The films that followed were massive. The 7-Year Itch, Bus Stop, Some Like It Hot. Each one bigger than the last. Each one proving she wasn't just a pretty face. She could act. She could command a scene. She could make audiences laugh and cry and fall in love with her in the span of 2 hours. But the studio still didn't respect her. They gave her scripts that insulted her intelligence, directors who treated her like a child, co-stars who resented her success. And through it all, Marilyn showed up. Late? Yes. Difficult? Absolutely. But she showed up. And she delivered performances that are still studied 70 years later. By 1960, she was exhausted. Her marriage to Arthur Miller was falling apart. Her body was breaking down from years of pills and pressure, and Fox was pushing her into another picture she didn't want to do. Something's Got to Give. A comedy. Light and fluffy. The kind of role she'd been trying to escape her entire career. But the studio didn't care what she wanted. They cared about box office receipts. So they scheduled production for April 1962, and Marilyn, too tired to fight, showed up. Sort of. She was late, constantly. Sometimes she didn't show up at all. She'd call in sick, and the production would shut down for the day. Hundreds of crew members sent home. Tens of thousands of dollars wasted. The director was furious. The studio was hemorrhaging money, and on June 8, 1962, they'd had enough. Quick question. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew people wanted you gone, but you refused to give them the satisfaction? Let us know in the comments. The termination letter was typed on official Fox letterhead. Cold. Corporate. Final. Dear Miss Monroe, due to your repeated violations of contract and failure to appear for scheduled production, we are hereby terminating your employment effective immediately. It was signed by the head of production. Not even hand-signed. A stamped signature. That's how little she meant to them in that moment. Marilyn received the letter at her home in Brentwood. She read it once, folded it neatly, and set it on the table. She didn't cry, not yet. Instead, she called her lawyer, told him what happened, and within 24 hours, the story was in every newspaper in America. Fox fires Marilyn Monroe. The studio thought the press would be on their side, that the narrative would be about a difficult actress who couldn't handle the pressure. A cautionary tale about what happens when you let fame go to your head. They were wrong. The public loved Marilyn. They saw her as one of them. A girl who'd come from nothing, survived foster homes and failed marriages, and somehow made it to the top. When Fox fired her, they didn't see a spoiled actress. They saw a corporation crushing a woman who'd given them everything. The backlash was immediate. Letters flooded Fox headquarters, hundreds, then thousands. Fans demanding they bring her back. Theater owners calling to say they wouldn't book Fox films if Marilyn wasn't in them. Other studios quietly reaching out to Marilyn's representatives, seeing if she was available for their projects. And the movie Fox had been filming, Something's Got to Give, sat unfinished. Millions of dollars already spent, sets built, costumes designed, film shot, all of it useless without their star. Within 2 weeks, Fox realized they'd made a catastrophic mistake. They tried to reach out quietly, through back channels, letting Marilyn's team know that maybe, just maybe, they could work something out. But Marilyn wasn't interested in quiet negotiations. Not this time. She gave an interview, one interview, to Life magazine. And in it, she spoke with the kind of honesty that Hollywood executives nightmare about. "They've been treating me like a piece of meat for 15 years, she said. "I've made them hundreds of millions of dollars, and they still talk to me like I'm an idiot." Well, I'm not. I'm a professional. I'm an actress. And I deserve to be treated with respect. The article hit newsstands on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, Fox's board of directors was in an emergency meeting. By Friday, they drafted a new contract. Not just any contract, the contract. $1 million for one film. Unheard of for a woman at that time. Complete script approval. Director approval. The right to bring her own acting coach to set. A percentage of the profits. Everything she'd been asking for and more. They sent it to her on June 28, 1962, exactly 20 days after they fired her. Marilyn read through it with her lawyer. Every clause. Every line. And when she got to the end, she did something she rarely did. She smiled. A real smile. Not the practiced one she used for cameras. This was satisfaction. This was victory. She was going to sign it. She told her lawyer she'd do it on Monday. She wanted the weekend to enjoy the moment, to let Fox sweat a little longer. But Monday never came. On August 5, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her home. Barbiturate overdose. The official ruling was probable suicide. But the truth, the real truth, that's been debated for 60 years. What we know for certain is this. The new contract sat unsigned on her lawyer's desk. The movie was never finished. And Fox, the studio that had fired and rehired her 3 times, lost the only star they could never truly replace. The funeral was small, private, a handful of people who actually knew her, not the Hollywood vultures who'd pretended to be her friends when she was alive. Joe DiMaggio arranged everything. He banned most of the studio executives. He knew what they'd done to her, how they'd used her up and thrown her away every time it suited them. Fox released a statement. Standard corporate sympathy. Deeply saddened by the loss of our beloved Marilyn. Beloved. As if they hadn't spent 15 years treating her like she was replaceable. But here's what the public didn't know. What wouldn't come out for decades. After Marilyn died, her estate went through her personal belongings, letters, diaries, notes she'd written to herself. And in one of those journals, dated June 27, 1962, one day before Fox sent the new contract, she wrote something haunting. They think I need them. They think I'll come back because I have nowhere else to go. But they're wrong. I've proven 3 times I can walk away and survive. This time I'm not just surviving, I'm winning. And they'll pay me what I'm worth, or they'll have nothing. She knew. She knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't a woman on the edge of breakdown. This was a woman who'd learned to play the game better than the men who invented it. And there's more. In 2022, 60 years after her death, a Fox executive's private memoirs were published. In them, He described the internal panic when Marilyn was fired the third time. He wrote about emergency board meetings, about theater chains threatening to boycott, about the very real possibility that Fox could lose tens of millions of dollars if they didn't get her back. But the most damning revelation was this. They knew she was struggling. They knew about the pills, the insomnia, the pressure. They had medical reports from the set, and they fired her anyway, because they thought she was desperate enough to come back on their terms. They gambled with her life, and they lost. The film Something's Got to Give was never released. The footage sat in a vault for decades. In 2001, Fox finally released what they had, 40 minutes of incomplete scenes. And even in that rough, unfinished state, you can see it. Marilyn was brilliant. Every frame she's in, she's magnetic, funny, vulnerable, real. She would have been nominated for an Oscar. Everyone who's seen the footage says the same thing. It was career-redefining work, the kind of performance that would have finally silenced the critics who said she couldn't act. But Fox's greed and ego robbed her of that chance. They fired her at the exact moment she was about to prove them all wrong. 3 times they tried to break her. 3 times she came back stronger. But the fourth time, she didn't come back at all. And Hollywood lost its brightest star to a darkness it helped create. Marilyn Monroe was 36 years old when she died. 36. Most actresses today are just hitting their prime at that age. But Marilyn was already considered washed up by Hollywood standards. Too old, too difficult, too damaged. They were wrong about all of it. In the 60-plus years since her death, her image has earned over $1 billion. Her films are still watched. Her photos are still iconic. Her story is still told. She's more famous now than she was when she was alive. And Fox? They're just another corporate entity that was bought and sold and absorbed into Disney. But here's what matters. Here's what they could never take from her. She fought. Every single day of her career, she fought. Against the studio system. Against the men who saw her as property. Against the world that wanted her to be dumb and pretty and nothing else. And 3 times, she won. 3 times, she walked away from the most powerful studio in Hollywood and came back on her terms. That takes courage most people will never understand. To risk everything. To bet on yourself when everyone else is betting against you. To know your worth even when the world tells you you're worthless. Marilyn Monroe was not a victim. She was a warrior. And those 3 firings weren't defeats. They were negotiations. Each time she leveraged her power. Each time she came back with more control, more money, more respect. She taught Hollywood a lesson they're still learning today. Talent doesn't work for you. You work for talent. So here's the question for you. When was the last time you stood up for your own worth? Even when it scared you? Even when everyone told you to back down? Let us know in the comments. Because that's what Marilyn did. 3 times. And it changed Hollywood forever. And unfortunately, they don't make women like Marilyn Monroe anymore.